Good afternoon, everyone. We are the Taylor Guitars practicum team, and our practicum is titled Assessing the Impact of the Ebony Project. So I wanted to start off today by introducing the Congo Basin, which is the world's second largest rainforest behind only the Amazon. It spans roughly 500 million acres, and as such, it supports complex biodiversity along with the livelihoods of roughly 50 million people living in the region. It also stores roughly 10% of the world's forest-based carbon, making it a critically important global carbon sink. However, like many other tropical rainforests across the world, the Congo Basin is currently facing increased rates of deforestation. The main driver of this change is actually small-scale subsistence agriculture, and in particular, slash and burn techniques used by the regional populations to grow food not only for themselves, but for global consumption is threatening the intactness of the rainforest. And now to pivot just a little bit, another tropical forest user is the guitar industry, which extracts tree species such as ebony to use in their instruments. Ebony is a tropical hardwood known for its dark complexion as well as its durability, and it's used primarily in the fretboards of guitars. It also takes 80 to 100 years to mature, making its extraction extremely unsustainable, and as a result, it's currently listed as a vulnerable species on the red species list. To help address this issue, an industry leader in Taylor Guitars has launched the Ebony Project, which in 2016 had the initial mission of replanting ebony as a means to to replant ebony in Cameroonian villages that were drivers of deforestation in the region. Since its founding in 2016, it has planted 40,000 ebony trees along with 25,000 fruit trees co-cropped in community agroforestry plots, which is a sustainable land management technique used by the project that combines forest conservation and food production. And now 9 years into the project, with a complex and ever-evolving system of villages and project initiatives, the Ebony Project now wants to understand what impact it's actually making on the local and regional context that it's operating in. And that leads us to our practicum research objectives. We wanted to first understand what the project is actually achieving and what impacts it's actually made. 2, we wanted to identify the mechanisms behind these project impacts. And 3, we wanted to acquire foundational data for the analysis of the unknown project impacts.
Alrighty, so that brings us to the theory of change. So within this really complicated context which the Ebony Project operates, there's a lot of unknowns. And to make those unknowns known, we use the theory of change, which is a method for mapping out the activities, resources, just all the external factors of a project and the possible impacts that come along with it. So we did this by creating a draft, which you can see on the right with the Ebony Project staff, which then became this graphic, which you don't really need to understand because it's a lot of information, but the important thing is that we came up with known and likely impacts that the project could be having, and we came up with ways to make these impacts measurable. So here are the impacts that we gleaned from the theory of change. The first of which we're going to focus on is increased population of ebony trees and other species. And these were made measurable using key performance indicators, which are points of data collection that the project can use to understand their impact and really know what change they are affecting. And those are there.
Okay, so the second impact we wanted to assess was the increased capacity and knowledge of the project. We thought the best way to do this was to develop a mission report database. So every time that an Ebony Project team made a mission out to a village to complete project activities, as you can see in the photos, they would build nurseries or plant new trees. And whenever they would do that, they would log them on mission reports. And in an online file, there are 70 mission reports detailing hundreds of visits to the 13 villages within the project. While it is very helpful having all that information on a file, it was not efficient for analysis. So boom, we made a mission report database. It took us a while, but just to give you an idea of the extent, from 2017 to 2019, that's what you see. So it goes on for 6 more years. Each row shows a village visit, and they're like summarizing each mission report. And the uses of this are, again, the collection of the data being on one file, as you just saw. It makes it much easier to assess the data. Creating a structure to organize future mission reports. So whenever the team makes its way to a village again, they can write their mission reports in a format that'll make it easy to plug in. Plugging in makes it easier for the whole project as a whole, because we can use it as a power tool for analysis multiple variables. So for example, from the database, we made a table talking about how many villages were visited since 2017. And then we made the table, and then from that, we made this graph. And this is just a simple idea of how it can be done. So for future emphasis, there will be a lot of impacts that we can look at through the database.
Great. Another impact that we think the Ebony project is having on the communities that it operates in is an increased income and food security. So like we mentioned before, the Ebony project not only plants ebony wood, but it also plants thousands and thousands of fruit trees alongside with those. When we first started looking at the project, we noticed that there wasn't a way to quantify how these fruit trees were doing after they've been planted, and no additional data was being collected on the fruit trees, again, after they were planted. So in order to fully understand the impact they're having on income and food security, we have to know what these trees are giving back to the communities to make that claim. So we decided that it would be important to understand fruit tree survival and fruit tree production. This is a current gap in project knowledge, so we thought that it would be helpful to establish a system for fruit tree data to be collected. Over spring break, our entire group got the amazing opportunity to actually travel to Cameroon and conduct work in 4 villages that the Ebony project also works in. In each of these villages, we were able to train a community member on data collection methods using a software called Kobo Collect. Kobo Collect is a free Android-based phone app, and we conducted a phone drive earlier in the year to get this equipment, but we trained these individuals on data collection, so now the project has a way to get incoming data from these communities. And this data collection really focuses on our 2 key metrics that I pointed out kind of before, which was fruit tree survival and fruit tree production. Over the 4 villages that we got to visit, we have tagged and are now currently tracking data on over 30 fruit trees. And really, we put this system in place in order to fill that project gap in knowledge. And now the Ebony project will have, hopefully going forward, a better understanding of their impacts on income and food security in the region.
And our last likely impact that we established was establishing a positive legacy for the future generations. And this was revealed to us through focus group conversations that we held while in Cameroon, with the aim to understand the community perceptions behind the Ebony project. Overall, we had 126 focus group participants, and we also had our Cameroonian student peers that we worked with throughout the year, helping us translate and analyze some of the qualitative data. And these are just some of our photos from our time in the field. We had an amazing opportunity to kind of see firsthand how this project achieved success and how these community members are actually implementing the project activities. And then to loop it back once again to our impact, we found that through our qualitative data, a lot of the community members really showed us how these benefits are not only helping the current generation, but also are going to be important for the future generations to come. And as we look towards the future, we now have a set of recommendations in our final report for the project to further understand some of the lesser known impacts that we hypothesize are happening. We also now have our theory of change and key performance indicators that we're using to build monitoring and evaluation systems for the project. And we want to place a continued emphasis on data collection and data refinement to establish some of the project impacts a little bit further. And then we just have a special thanks to our Cameroon student peers, the Ebony project leadership, and our project donors for all their help and support. Thank you.
All right, any questions from the audience? See, Ryan, thought we'd been here.
Well, I want to know, just from a couple of folks, what your recommendations would be for like an incoming group of seniors that we're going to hit the Cameroon next year. What would be your number one piece of advice in terms of a project or your impact?
So right now for our final report, a lot of what we're doing is going back and looking at databases that already exist within the project. And we're hoping to use that and some of the work we did to run analyses that will be put into figures in our final report. But because we have a limited amount of time, we're only going to be able to do so much. And hopefully next year there will be more data available and we'll be able to actually take all of that and put it as a basis so that future practicum groups can use that data, especially since it's very uncertain whether as to they're going to be able to travel or not next year, unfortunately. And so this gives them something online, tangible to be able to be used. And we're doing our analysis in R.
Yeah. Additionally, because one of the things that we did was try and input this data collection format where the communities are uploading data themselves, I think that it would be great if the next year's travel could continue for people to kind of monitor how the data collection is going. It's a very it's a challenging environment to do data collection in, just because of like the nature of being in the field, and then there's like not the cell service that we're used to. There's not the like internet that people here are used to having. So I think that by letting a group go out there and continuously like, monitor this data collection, because we do really think that the data collection system that we put in place is really important for the project to help understand their impact. So that could be a future project, is just kind of going out there, refining, and just allowing the Ebony project to keep collecting this data is super important. So I think that would be good as well.
Yeah, it's a question.
Did you feel that the Ebony project had a strong connection with the local community?
Most definitely, a lot of them talked about a lot of the negatives that are happening, but also a lot of the positives. So I think obviously there's trade-offs, but ultimately with the fruit trees that they're co-cropping along with the ebony, it's, you know, benefiting their livelihoods, and they're very, you know, excited for the work that's happening. And yeah, it's a very interesting mix between, you know, food security and food livelihood, and kind of the conservation of the forest. So it's mutually beneficial, I believe.
Something that we also found from the communities is that they were very aware of the future implications of the project, impacting their families and their grandchildren, just really loving the fact that this is something that their kids are going to be able to see that they did, and they tried to help their community as well as, like, you know, the world.
Last thing to add on to that is we have the privilege of doing focus groups with elders in the community. So they were the ones that initially helped establish the project in those communities. They worked hand in hand with members of the Ebony project. So to them, it's something that's really special and meaningful to them, since they were the ones that accepted the project and wanted to be part of it.